Caleb John Raleigh has won the Gold Glove at the catching position in the American League. Jordan and I are going to take a look at what Cal did this season, and then we're going to talk about an article from the Yapper himself, John Morosi, about international signing possibilities this offseason. And we'll wrap it all up by taking some of your guys' trade ideas and breaking them down. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 136 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Be sure to give us a 5-star review, like, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And this is the Chronos 1009 episode of the Hit It Here podcast. And Joe, I am here. We're both missing facial hair, but here we are. Let's talk about it.
It's a little, a little bit different of a look for the Hit It Here podcast, but I'm in, man. Let's just pretend like this is normal.
Right.
Let's not bring attention to it. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Things we need to bring attention to, Colton. Like you mentioned, Cal Raleigh won the Gold Glove, beat out who? Freddie Fermin and Jake Rogers? Sure, doesn't matter. You know why? Because they lost. And who won? Cal frickin' Raleigh. Put up, the best catcher season in Mariners history, without a doubt in my mind. Offensively,
first catcher,
but also
Gold Glove.
Defensively, and you're saying first catcher to win Gold Glove. That's kind of surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that Dan Wilson's the Mariners leader in all-time defensive WAR for some random reason, knowing that fact, but knowing now that he never won Gold Glove, that's kind of crazy. I would have put money down that Dan Wilson won the Gold Glove Award at some point throughout his career because he was a great defensive catcher. And had it existed way back when, I probably would have done it with BetOnline. Thank you to BetOnline for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL, and since the MLB regular season and postseason is over, free agency bets on who's going to play where will be available soon on BetOnline. Make sure you guys head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Colton, I'm not really sure where to begin because defensive metrics do get a little funky, but you look at, so we'll go to Baseball Savant. Cal, 31st percentile. 31st is crazy. 31st percentile in blocks above average. Not that great. Caught stealing above average. 74th percentile, I'd say like above average. 98th percentile in framing. And then 63rd percentile in pop time. It's kind of hard to get that big dumper up there so fast. I don't blame him. But threw out 32 runners this season. A 28% caught stealing clip. 6% better than the league average. Like, there's signs that point to why Cal was the Gold Glove. Bro caught 1,122 innings behind the dish and led the Mariners pitching, was the commander essentially for one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball. It's, I think, probably the easiest award given out, potentially. Maybe a National League MVP is a bit easier, but still, Gold Glove catcher American League, it always felt like it was Cal Raleigh's to win.
I think that it was I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know they were being announced today. I had no idea. And then all of a sudden I get a notification on my phone that Cal won it. I was like, yeah, it was inevitable in my opinion that he was going to win that award. It'll be interesting to see kind of what he goes with next year in terms of because you can wear the patch on your glove, but I think it's just the patch on your glove. So I think that maybe because this year he was using Sebi Zavala's glove. So how does that work? You know what I mean? Hold the phone. But yeah, I think that it just seemed like that was for sure going to happen. We know that he led the league in strikes stolen, basically, that he was able, like you said, framing. And that caught stealing rate this year really took off for him. The one thing he couldn't do was catch a baseball if it bounced once on a throw from an outfielder or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It just seemed like that was for sure what was going to happen. And the Mariners are very, very lucky to have him behind the dish. Now it's time to start getting that extension worked on because we don't really have much backup depth at all, period. So Cal's got to be the guy. And going into next year, obviously, that he is, the guy in the middle of your order every single day, pretty much, whether he's catching or not. the value that he provides to this team is immeasurable. He was the MVP of this team for a reason. And it started on the offense, but he really, like you said, with the pitching staff, he was the commander of everything that they did out there. Nobody was shaking him off because it's Cal. They trust Cal. Nobody works harder than Cal. And I mean, we know how much of a warrior he is. He was playing with like half a thumb back in 2022. So Cal Raleigh is definitely the guy that I think deserved this award. And again, it felt inevitable, Joe.
I am just very much so looking forward to how much respect he will have earned on the top blank catchers going into next season. He better not be lower than like he will be in the top 5 in every single list, in my
He
opinion.
better be top 3.
He has to be in the top 5. I agree. He better be top 3. Like him, Adley, and like William Contreras, I'd say are like the 3 that are probably like, if you think about Contreras, like offensively, sure, like you could say Will Smith, you could say if people are still like riding JT Realmuto for whatever reason, they're still staying on that old horse. But I think that Cal has cemented his way in terms of being at the top of the league as far as just what a premier catcher looks like, both offensively and defensively.
Mm-hmm. I think that if somehow Adley finishes above him, there's a problem.
Sure, like in those lists.
Yeah, but at the same time, we'll see Brian Kenny on there with the Shredder or something, and it'll find some weird obscure stat that says that Cal Raleigh is not one of the best catchers in baseball, and he might not even make the list again. It'll be stupid. So let's shift gears a little bit, Joe, because our favorite punching bag last offseason, the Yapper, came out with an article talking about some international signings that could take place this offseason. Now, there's nobody coming over like, Shohei Ohtani style.
Sure.
However, there are some names that we looked at that did make a lot of sense for the Seattle Mariners going into 2025, because obviously they have holes throughout the infield. What guys make sense to fill those holes, and could you get them for relatively cheap? So the first one we should talk about here, Joe, is Kazuma Okamoto. He is, 28? Yeah, he's 28 years old. Would be coming over from Japan.
Yep.
He's a third baseman, first baseman, outfielder, and he's put up some pretty solid years in Japan for the Yomiuri Giants. I believe that Yomiuri Giants.
I always say Yomiuri.
Yomiuri Giants. If we're probably gonna mispronounce things here, we're sorry. But in 143 games in 2024, he hit 280, 362, 501 with an 863 OPS. He had 27 home runs with 83 RBI. He struck out 97 times with 66 walks. So not bad in regards to the strikeouts. In 2023, he hit 41 home runs. He's usually right around 30, in between 30 and like 40-ish home runs since 2018. This year, a little bit lower. But yeah, overall, a guy that does make some sense for the Mariners. Joe, where are you at with Kazuma Okamoto?
Yeah, John Morosi notes like an average of 33 home runs over the past 7 seasons. I wouldn't put it on like maybe the same level as like the NPB's Pete Alonso, but like if you're looking at a consistent power bat that's going to go out and get you 35 home runs almost every single season, sure, the NBB is a little bit different than the MLB. It's not like he's not going to come over and hit 35 bombs. I'm not going to go out there and like pencil him in next year should he be in the MLB for that metric. However, it's a guy that has that ability, showed up in the WBC, hit a big bomb off of Kyle Freeland in that final. So it's like, he's a guy at either corner too. It's not just like a first baseman, like, yeah, you could stick him at third and survive. Like he's put in a ton of innings at third base over his career in Japan. Not so much last year, mainly played first base last year. It was 130 games, but just the previous year in 2023, he played 84 games at third base. In 2022, 140 games. In 2021, 143 games. Like, he was mainly a third baseman and then made the switch over to first base this last season. I hope that's not necessarily a full kind of like the full picture going forward. I expect, I don't know. Maybe it's me projecting of like what I want out of this player should he be a Seattle Mariner. Of course, it's not entirely likely given other teams that could be in this market, because there's a lot of teams out there that have holes at either first or third that could be pretty big players here. I think you're looking at a guy that will come over and should project out to be a middle of the lineup type guy. May have a hole in his swing. The strikeouts, like you're saying, aren't terrible in the MPB, but I think anytime you've got a guy coming over from either the KBO or the NPB, expect the strikeout rate to go up a little bit. Like the competition is just a little bit better in Major League Baseball. So expect some of these stats to kind of maybe plateau a little bit, maybe dip a little bit. And then as they make a little bit more progress in the MLB, they can kind of like level out. If I'm looking at this guy in the Seattle Mariners lineup, like this is your everyday starting first baseman and can go play third base for you if you need him to. And you then like have Luke Raley play first base. If they wanted to go that route, I just think he's probably out of their. I don't want to say it to already, but like he feels like he'd probably be too expensive. I would assume, and it's not as premier as a position as like say an outfielder, but like say a Suzuki got 5 years, 85 million from the Cubs, and I would say that Seiya Suzuki was a better player than this guy was in the NPB than Okamoto. So like maybe it's not that steep. Maybe it's closer to like 5 years, 75 million, but like bro's going to be 29. I expect him to probably just want to sign a contract for the majority of his 30s and then sign a smaller contract to finish out his career in the MLB. I would love it. I just don't know if the Mariners are going to be able to compete with, I'd say like the Yankees are going to be a big player for Okamoto should he get posted by the Giants this offseason.
And Morosi does note that the Tigers would be interested in adding his services, which I think is an interesting fit as well. Um, but yeah, I would agree. I think that he's just probably out of the Mariners' price range. It does make a lot of sense. He can fill, like you said, first base or third base for you, and obviously a good power bat. Maybe not necessarily what the Mariners are looking for, though, is like a power. They do need to add power, but it's not shouldn't be their main concern, Joe. And another guy that was mentioned here by John Morosi. Now this is going to get a little confusing, but this is Hye-seong Kim, not Ha-seong Kim, correct?
Yeah.
Hye-seong Kim,
Or yeah, like
yeah,
it's not it's HYE-SEONG Kim. Very similar to Ha-seong Kim, the player who just opted out of his contract with the Padres, also a middle infielder, also from the KBO.
Yeah, so coming out of the KBO, he'll be 26 next year. In 2024, he had 326, 383, 458 with an 841 OPS. He did hit a career high 11 home runs in 2024, struck out only 62 times in 127 games, and walked 47 times. So this is a guy whose strikeouts are not as high for him, although KBO and NPB are not like exactly the same thing. I want to say, and I could be wrong on this, but I think the NPB's like level of play is a little bit higher than the KBO. I might be wrong on that.
I'd say most evaluations have it like MLB, NPB, AAA, KBO. Is where a lot of people would evaluate it. Of course, the top end talent in the KBO will be more than likely better than a lot of the AAA talent, depending on like how scouts and whatever, like how organizations deploy their prospects. Like they probably don't let their top prospects fully get into AAA. Like how the Mariners pitching prospects never touch AAA. Like would they be able to go over into the KBO and dominate or pitch pretty damn well? Yeah, probably. But yeah, the KBO, it's probably, if not at AAA, a little bit below it.
So this is a career 304 hitter. Like he very much is a guy who has added a little bit of power. It's again 11 home runs is a career high. He's not going to hit a ton of home runs in the MLB unless all of a sudden he just takes off. Left-handed bat for you. He can play second base, shortstop, and left field. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad fit. He's probably not going to make as much as Okamoto would. Where are you kind of at, like projection wise, with? Because you wanted to make a comparison here. Where are you at with hye-seong Kim?
Just where are we at with Kim?
Kim.
So looking back to last offseason with Jung-Hoo Lee, and even like a couple off seasons ago with Ha-seong Kim for the Padres. Ha-seong Kim got a 4-year, $28 million contract coming out of the KBO. Jung-Hoo Lee got a 6-year, $113 million contract. Both of those guys, I'd say, were better, I think, overall talents than Ha-seong Kim coming out of the KBO. Of course, the market, there's a little bit of inflation to take into account. I would say around what Ha-seong Kim got from the Padres would be what I would do for hye-seong Kim right now. 4 years, $28 million, maybe do 4 years, $24 million. give him like $6 million annual average. If he wants an extra year in there, I'm fine with it. That's probably where I would be at with it. He plays a less premium position than Jung-Hoo Lee. He's not going to get that crazy level of money, and he's also not a former KBO MVP. Jung-Hoo Lee's high watermark OPS in the KBO was 996. This guy's is 842 in 2023. Like, he's a good bat. He's a good bat to ball profile. Like you're saying, strikeouts not super crazy. It's down every single year of his professional career, going back to 2021, where like he really kind of like had his big offensive breakout. I say it's like where you kind of see it start to take place. 15.3 strikeout percentage down to 14.7, down to 12.4, and then 10.9 last year. Again, expect those numbers to maybe not like completely balloon coming over to the MLB, but like he's not going to strike out at like a 10% clip if he comes over next season. Like that's just not, I'd say, fully reasonable. Expect like maybe 17 to 18, but still that's serviceable for a guy that has the potential to hit 300. Again, also take into account, he might not hit 300. It might be like 280 with a not great power output. Not the issue, but like looking at that, that's better than Josh Rojas. That's better than what Josh Rojas gave you last year. It seems a bit more like going out on a whim. Like we're really kind of like putting eggs into the basket of like, we don't know what this guy could be coming over. And I just don't know if it's like fully worth it, but like the thing, I would honestly love it if he was right-handed. For whatever reason, I think right-handed just to be a complementary piece to Rojas there at second base and then go fill out third base. And that still leaves you a decent amount of money to play with, like 10 million maybe to go fill out at third base, I think would be very, very doable. I like it, but there's other teams that are in play here. Morosi notes the Red Sox, the Angels, and the Giants. And I don't know if they'd be able to compete with the Giants if the Giants, they miss out like on Willy Adames, because I feel like they're probably looking at shortstop this offseason. And if they don't get him, they don't get Ha-Seong Kim, they might turn to hye-seong Kim, former teammate of Jung-Hoo Lee, and just kind of like make it full circle, have a guy there in San Francisco ready to like be like, hey, I'm here. Let's get comfortable. Mm-hmm. Let's just like make this very easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl coming to the MLB. Just like make it all natural. You don't have to worry about any like hiccups. I got your back. I could see that being a very real possibility for hye-seong Kim coming over to the MLB this offseason. It's not going to be an expensive contract. It's one I think the Mariners could afford. I just don't know if they will be the highest bidder or they view his talents as something necessary when they've got guys like Rojas, Dylan Moore, Ryan Bliss already within house.
Yeah, Morosi does mention that MLB evaluators view Kim as a potential, or some MLB evaluators view Kim as a potential everyday second baseman or a high-end utility player with good contact skills. I feel like the profile is kind of Josh Rojas-esque, but Rojas does have a lot more swing and miss in his game. Morosi does note that Kim is a defensive standout at second base as well.
Yeah.
So it's something the Mariners could be interested in, but like you said, in terms of if there gets to be some sort of bidding war for Kim, it's just hard to say. And this is a guy who probably will be posted. I don't think we mentioned it, but Okamoto may not be posted. Because the Giants may not want to post him because Sugano's coming over and they might not want to lose two of their big guys. So, but Kim will be posted. It sounds like so.
Yeah,
we'll see on Okamoto. Kim will be posted. Moving on now, Joe, to some other roster moves that could happen for the Mariners, and we just want to make something like we were hoping to get Mitch Haniger news today. We didn't. We were hoping that we get a decision on his option. Like maybe he decides to retire, but. We did.
Did not happen.
Maybe by the time you're hearing this, that decision did happen. Then he did pick up his option, which is obviously the most likely scenario of what's going to happen here on the 4th. But hoping to get it today, we didn't. It'll probably come out like right after you finish editing this.
It'll be
usually how that works.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, moving on to some of your guys' trade ideas. First, let's talk about Juju's here. Juju says Tyler Locklear and Ashton Izzy for Lamont Wade Jr. Juju says it may be a bit of an overpay, but we need his bat. He needs his left-handed bat, and he hits and plays first base. Is what Juju had to say. Lamont Wade Jr. is an interesting one because he's going into the final year of his contract. He has long been rumored that the Mariners have been interested in him. I don't hate it. I think it's like a fine trade idea. I think it might take more. I don't really know what.
More.
Well, like I just don't like maybe not Ashton Izzy. Like I don't know if Ashton Izzy is really anything. You know what I
Sure,
mean?
that's
So
fair.
like if you did
Do you
like
think that
Locklear and like somebody who has a little bit more upside, I think you'd probably get done.
do you think that they'd want like a more MLB ready player? Because I feel like Locklear is as close as you're gonna get as far as like
Hmm.
a prospect being like an MLB type player. I my issue with Lamont Wade Jr. has been the same for a while now, and it's as far as just like club fit is concerned. He is Luke Rayleigh. We have Lamont Wade Jr. pretty much already. Can we roster another first base corner outfield type that's a left-handed bat? I just don't know if it makes sense. I
Hmm.
like the idea in practice. I think last during the trade deadline, it was like, oh, Lamont, like this was a guy that like a lot of people were like, I would love to go out and acquire him. And that was before we got Justin Turner. And before I think like Luke Rayleigh like really kind of just started playing first base every single day, and Victor Robles, we were like, oh yeah, for sure, like he'll be every single day right field, and obviously Randy Rosarena. So like there's just not a lot of space in my head for Lamont Wade Jr. with how the roster is currently constructed. I like him. It's hard to disagree on a back-to-back 120 OPS plus year, back-to-back 2.5 win season. That's a good player. Are you willing to give up a top 10 prospect who, I mean, maybe could put up, maybe not the exact same stat line, but could you get a 1.5, 2 win season out of Locklear next year? I wouldn't be surprised. And sure, like you're saying, is Ashton Izzy nothing? Could be. So, like, are you just trading like a 1 for 1? You might be. I think I'd rather just keep Locklear and have that control, because you're gonna have to pay Lamont Wade Jr. for this year in arbitration. It's not going to be a ton. I mean, he's entering his final year, and yes, he's been decent, but it's not like something that's going to blow you out of the water. I might just rather hold on to Tyler Locklear given the fit of the roster at this time. It's a similar situation. Like I said with Kim, if he was right-handed, I'd love it. If Lamont Wade Jr. was right-handed, I'd love it. And maybe that's like me stuck in my head about like
Your Scott Service's favorite.
exactly, like I am playing into the handedness platoon trap like nobody's business. But like what does the roster look like with Lamont Wade Jr. on it? Like you can't start Rayleigh and Lamont Wade Jr. in the same lineup unless one of them's DHing. Or like Rayleigh's playing the outfield and then Randy Rosarena is DHing. You can do that. It's just like it feels redundant.
Hmm. I think that I would agree with that. I would rather have Locklear. I would honestly just rather re-sign Justin Turner. Like
Yeah.
I would much rather do that than go get Lamont Wade Jr. for 1 year. Because you're right. He basically, I mean, you look at his stat line: 260, 380, 381 with a 761 OPS. He had 8 homers with 34 RBIs. Like that's nothing special. Like don't be wrong. Like a 2.1 WAR season with a 121 OPS plus. Like that's fine. That's great. But it's just I don't know. He doesn't really do anything for you. Whereas with Justin Turner, you obviously get that veteran presence that guys clearly liked this year in 2024. They like Justin Turner, and a guy who I think, while not necessarily your greatest fit, you don't have to give anything up for him other than just cold hard cash.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. I think that there's still a relatively decent possibility that Tyler Locklear is the first baseman of the future. Like just because he didn't get a whole lot of run in 2024, the hard part with that is that relying on Tyler Locklear to be the first baseman of the future is very hard to do when you have so many other holes as well.
Mm-hmm.
If the Mariners went out there and signed Willie Adames and signed Alex Bregman, I'd be like, sure, let Locklear start at first because you filled up those holes. But that's not going to happen. And so you can't have a ton of question marks going into next year because, frankly, if the Mariners miss the playoffs again, like we're in a tough spot.
You're in a pickle.
And so, yeah. And if you can't rely on a guy who just hasn't been there and done that in the major leagues in 2025, which is another reason why I kind of have a hard time with some of the international guys.
Sure.
For that same reason. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what they do if Lamont Wade Jr. does get moved. I kind of think he will this offseason, but I don't necessarily know if it's to the Mariners unless it's for like something relatively small.
Yeah, arbitration hasn't projected out at 4.7 million. Like that's a reasonable price to pay for a guy like Lamont Wade Jr. and what you're gonna have to give up in a trade package. It's nothing like out of the realm of like a team that's competing should be willing to pay that price if it makes your team better. If he was a third baseman, if he was a second baseman, all in, all in on Lamont Wade Jr. It'd be like hell yeah, love it. It's just the position redundancy that just checks me out because it limits so much of what they can do with the rest of their offseason that like not to be crass or just like kind of blunt, but like what's the point? How much better does it really make you if you're still leaving the like you're saying those holes at third and second base with this trade? I think the trade is good in practice, Juju. It's just for what the Mariners currently have as a roster, I just don't see it personally.
This one is from M's Realist, who said Mitch Haniger, Michael Arroyo, and Tyler Locklear for Luis Robert and Andrew Vaughn. It's going to take a lot more than that.
I'm gonna say, how do we let him down gently?
Yeah, it's going to take a lot more than that. Frankly, I don't see any realm of possibility that the White Sox would ever do anything like this. Andrew Vaughn's been disappointing, very much so, for what everyone thought he could be.
Yeah.
But he still had some decent years here and there. He was a guy that when we were talking about underrated trade candidates, he's a guy that I thought about because it does make a little bit of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Luis Robert, I think, what does he have? 2 more years? So this year and 26?
I believe so. And Vaughn, I mean, the thing with Vaughn is he's got decent club control. He's not a free agent until 2027. But like you're saying, he's been pretty disappointing as far as like what the White Sox probably expected out of him. Yeah, Robert, he's a free agent in 2026. So you'll have him for 2025. Wait, I mean, you only have him through. Oh, he has team options. That's right.
Yeah,
he has team options. Yeah, 26 and 27 team options. Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, yeah, I don't know. If you're getting Luis Robert Jr., you're gonna have to start with somebody like probably in your top 5.
I think you could do Locklear and Arroyo. You just can't package it with Haniger because how negative of an asset he is. The hard thing I think with this trade is you're buying 2 guys at their lowest value. Like Vaughn, he's reaching his first year of arbitration. Didn't put up another great has not been good. Just plain and simple. OPS below 700. It was 699. Tough. Real close. But yeah, just like a league basically like a little bit below league average bat. He's not going to do anything special for you over at first base. And obviously Luis Robert just had his worst season ever, pretty much, like without a lot of question there. And you're trying to package it with also $17 million Mitch Haniger along with your number 6 and like what, number 12? Like if you take out Haniger, it's still going to take more because frankly, you've got a decent amount of control for both of the guys. And if you can somehow like unlock them, that's great. But you're paying more for the name than you are for like what you'll probably get on the field in 2025, if I'm being honest.
I'll be kind of shocked if Robert does get traded this offseason simply because of how bad he was.
You have to get his value up if you're the White Sox. He has to be hitting 280 with like 25 bombs at the deadline, and then you ship him out for as much as you can get.
Yeah, and I also don't necessarily know why the Mariners would do this. Because how much it's going to cost to get Luis Robert when your outfield, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not set by any means. Like you obviously adding the potential of Luis Robert is very much upgrading your outfield. However, it's not a position of need currently. I mean, Robert, you probably want him to play in the outfield because how good he is defensively, but you probably also want him to DH because of how often he gets hurt. Yeah. And so it's like it's kind of a tough line to toe. And then thinking about Andrew Vaughn again, is he? I mean, he's probably better than Tyler Locklear, but by how much? Like, I don't know. I truly don't know.
I would take money that I think Locklear will be better than Andrew Vaughn going forward.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard of a bar to hit.
So yeah, I don't personally know why the Mariners would do it. I just think that the package is not quite there. I'm realist, and I think that the fit isn't quite there either anymore, especially with the emergence of Victor Robles and obviously Luke Raley. Any final thoughts on that one, Joe?
Nothing really about that, but Dylan Moore, also Gold Glove winner, Colton.
Really?
He won the utility man Gold Glove.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
That is shocking.
Your favorite Seattle Mariner was given an award for his contributions to the 2024 Seattle Mariners. How do you feel?
I feel really good. I knew it was happening all along for sure.
Yeah, totally had that one locked in as, yeah, this isn't going to be Mauricio Dubon again. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Demo, dude. I mean, good for him.
Good for him.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
great.
sick. That's awesome. I mean, he filled in real nice when JP was out. So, it's just everything he did after that was ass. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Okay, well that's a good way to end the podcast, Joe. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 136 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online, the Terry Fisher episode of the podcast, and go Mariners.